Hi, Jason here again with Siskiyou. Going to give you some information now on our face-based flange applications within your Siskiyou duct model for version 9.3. The theme of Siskiyou duct as we implemented starting back in 9.2 all the way through is we're trying to open things up and get the most productive and responsive elements that you can have in your model working with your RFAs and your Siskiyou duct components. One of the things that we added is the ability to apply a service type to the face-based flange that populates at your duct to fitting connections. So if we jump in here, take a look at, for instance, right on this duct to fitting connection here, remember that within Revit you can't graphically modify the the system family. So the duct itself, you can't change the graphics on. So what we're doing is we're using our couplings to represent the joint at that end. However, when we touch duct to fitting, we have to populate a face-based flange, being that if we were to go duct to coupling to fitting, we would change the way that Revit behaves when you nudge and drag around your duct elements. So what we do is we just populate a face-based flange that doesn't have a physical connector to any of these elements, and it just represents the connector. So if you need to coordinate for that space, you can. One of the automation processes that Siskiyou does is place that face-based connector, and now with 9.3, we give you the option to apply the service type to that connector. So you'll notice that in my project here, my duct runs are colored with an outline based on the service type. That's being pushed here through my service types. So if you go in, you can see that I have green for exhaust, return is magenta, and supply is blue. So now being that we have a face-based connector that has some nested families in it, the element is not going to want to color with the service type. So if you're pushing the service type here, you have an option. So the element is going to appear dark, whether or not you have a service type color being applied, and I'll kind of outline that a little bit here. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to go, I want to give you something that's going to have a more prominent flange. So let's go into a TDC, and we'll just model this out real quick. And I did run this with auto break on, but you can already see right now, being that this is, and you have to forgive my filter, I have a Siskiyou process filter, so I can see which elements have been processed with Siskiyou and what hasn't. But you can see that these flanges here don't, the edge of them will, so it will take on the service type, but the whole flange itself is not going to, if the service type is not applied, right? So what I'm going to do is take a look at the settings. And being that this is undefined, that is going to be due to the setting for face-based flanges being turned off. So as you can see in the tooltip, selecting the option will apply the associated service type to your duct to fitting face-based flanges. Just keep in mind that adding this may increase Siskiyou processing to the degree that it increases the time that it takes to process your elements is all dependent on the environment that you're in. Obviously, in a larger, more complex model, that degree is going to be a little bit greater than it would be in a smaller model. I think this model here is like 60 to 80 megs. I don't recall the exact size. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and you can see the difference. So I'm going to turn that on, and then I'm just going to reprocess this. So you kind of saw how fast it processed the first time, and then it does take a little bit of an extra at the end to process the service type. So now if I jump in here and I click on this, you'll see that we're on return error, and that it does in fact outline on the edges with the service type. Now, if you want them to appear a little bit better, you can use a filter. So most of you will have a filter built into your project. Some of you will not. If you don't, for instance, I don't have any filters applied to this, and there is actually a set of filters that I can bring in automatically if I don't already have one created. So let's walk through that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and go to Open Project. And there's a location within your C drive where Siskiyou will deposit a project that gives you access to some pre-built filters. Feel free to bring them in, modify them, whatever you want to do with them. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to C, program data, building data, support, and within my build year template files, so I'm working in 2022, and you see here I have 2022 template files, and within here I have this 2022 Siskiyou filter project. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this, and then I'm going to go back to my model and go to my Manage tab, and this is basically transferring project standards. I'm going to click Transfer Project Standards, copy from my filter project. I'm just going to check none, and I'm going to go down to Filters and click OK. And it'll quickly import the filters from that project. So when I'm done, I can go ahead and close this model. And now what I'll be able to do is come into my filters and go to add, and then you'll see within the filter list, you'll see these SQ underscore filters. So I want to go ahead and grab Siskiyou Mechanical, return and supply, bring those in, and then I can give them the same override as my system, my service type. So I'm going to go ahead with supply. If I remember correctly, it was blue. Hit OK. Return was magenta. I think I had exhaust as green. And you'll see what that did is brighten up the color on those flanges. So now it's more prominent for you. Especially if you're working in a plan view or an overhead 3D view, you don't really even notice the flanges at all as being anything different. Now, what do you do if you've already modeled with these flanges and you want to come back? So let's take a look at that real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Siskiyou Duct again. Let's get back into my system. And then I'm going to jump into the settings, and I'm going to turn that face-based flange off. And then I'm going to go ahead and just reprocess this because I want it to populate with that setting off. Okay, so as you can see, again, we're back here to the dark flanges, which for some of you, that'll be just fine. Just carry on and work that route. If you do want to come back after the fact, we have provided a method. So I can just select the flanges and the connected components, come up to the menu, and there's a utility right here in the menu that is apply face-based service. You see from the flyout, we're listing use this utility to apply the associated Revit service type to the face-based connectors in your selection set. So I'm just going to click this, and it's automatically going to apply the service type to those flanges. Now, sometimes filters don't play well with this because you can see how the edge took on the color and the body did not. Sometimes you have to go into your filters. And for instance, this is my return. So if I disable that filter and then enable that filter, you see how that actually kicked in the color and made it more prominent. Again, if turn off the face-based service type, Siskiyou will process faster to some degree. And if you'd like to, at the end, you can always select your elements and run the utility independently, or you can turn your option on and have it apply the service type at the time of processing. I think that wraps our video. As usual, thanks for watching, and head over to the YouTube channel to take a look at all of our What's New videos for version 9.3. Thank you.